Well, welcome once again to the L&D Ninja podcast. I am your host, Reggie Padilla, and I am so glad that you are with us today. It's an incredible day here in South Florida, although a little sticky and hot. And if you hear thunder in the background, don't get alarmed. It's just that time of year for us here in South Florida. In fact, I was going to do this podcast outside, and I lasted all but 5 seconds because it was so humid and gross out there that I said, nah, I got to go back inside. So thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for all the notes, all the kind words, all the feedback that you've been giving me. I cannot stress how excited I am that I'm able to just bring these great guests to you, to expose you to these great conversations, great people, great professionals that are passionate about learning and development and passionate about just pouring into the lives of other people. So today's guest is no exception to that. Tom Pender. He's working for ISC Square, a cybersecurity company. But before that, he and I met actually when he was working for the AICPA, and I'm gonna let him tell us what that means and what he did there. But in another life, he and I got to actually work together, and he's a brilliant guy, super funny, incredible partner. And so I just thought, hey, I need to have Tom Pender all the way from the mountains of North Carolina. Welcome, Tom. But by the way, this is a fake background. His is not.
Reggie, I'm thrilled to be here. I love the show. I applaud you for the exploding onto the scene that you've done in such a short time. And I really appreciate the invitation. It's great to reconnect and just hang out and chat.
Wow. Yeah, we've always enjoyed, we've done business together, of course, when you were with the ICPA and I was in the accounting firms that I was working with. But, one of the things that always I look forward to was having those great conversations with you. So I'm so glad that we get to do it again and just bring other people along for the ride. So, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope we have one of those kinds today, Reggie.
Oh, we will.
For the sake of your audience, we have one of those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Tom, tell us where you're at. What are you doing? Well, right now you're in North Carolina and you're going to be in the mountains celebrating a birthday coming up. Is it tomorrow?
Yep, that's right. Got a birthday tomorrow. I couldn't think of any better way to do birthday eve than to be on the show with you.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But yeah, I live and work in Raleigh, North Carolina. Happy to be here in the mountains for a couple of days this weekend, friend's place. And as you mentioned, I'm at ISC Squared. We are essentially the world's largest professional membership and certifying body of cybersecurity professionals in the world, 170,000 plus members strong right now.
Wow.
I do want to clarify for your listeners that I am not here in an official capacity for ISC Squared. All thoughts and opinions are my own, et cetera, et cetera. Everything else the lawyers want me to say there.
We'll put all the disclaimer at the end there.
Yeah, all the fine print. But I will say that I'm happy to be in an L&D adjacent role here, yes, as I engage with organizations, industry groups, et cetera, on learning and development plans. And I wouldn't be here if we didn't have similar worldviews about the role of L&D and continuing professional development for people out there in the work world. So hopefully that gives your folks enough context for maybe why you and I are talking today.
Yeah, and listen, and you've been there now how long now?
February a year ago. So it'll be about a year and a half by the end of the summer.
Yeah, but before then you were actually working with the AICPA.
Correct.
And so let the audience know what is the AICPA and where they, where's their main focus?
Yeah. So I was there for about 10 years prior to coming into the world of cybersecurity, and that was a little frightening for me. It was a little bit of a leap of faith at this tender age of my career to leave the profession that I had known since graduating from college, 30 years ago, we'll call it. And 20 of those, all of those years were in the profession of accounting in some form or fashion. Started off on the audit side of the house with Ernst & Young way back in the day. And then found my way to the Professions Association at the American Institute of CPAs. And the last several years of that decade there was spent in a similar outreach role, working with your firms and others on this notion of how do you, once your professionals are inside the door, the house of your firm, then how do you keep them growing? How do you keep them learning? How do you keep them expanding? And oh, by the way, adding value to the firm.
Yeah.
What I've realized since jumping into cybersecurity is there are a lot of similarities. There are some nuances, differences in the community, and then there are some stark differences. The most interesting to me is a vocab word they have in cybersecurity that I never encountered in the profession of accounting, and it is evangelist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some organizations out there that use the term.
Yeah.
Which I think it's really cool.
I've known what the word means for a while, but I've never really seen it in action in terms of a professional application of it. And despite all the headlines that we all, I think, hope are familiar with by now, Colonial, SolarWinds, name your hack or breach of the week, there's still a lot of work to be done in the C-suite and the boardroom in terms of getting resources invested in cybersecurity inside of organizations. And it takes not just somebody with a technical base of knowledge, but somebody who can communicate and evangelize to help bring the masses along, especially at leadership level. It's a fascinating dynamic to watch in what I consider to still be an emerging profession.
And what has been your experience so far? Because in your role, I'm assuming that your role in your present company is like with the AICPA, you're in contact with companies and building those relationships. How is that? I mean, how is that going, especially going in with the mindset of an evangelist?
Well, yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. One is it's difficult. It has been difficult this last year as I've ramped up a very steep learning curve. It's been difficult being the new guy all over again. I haven't been the new guy in over a decade. I don't like being the new guy. Okay. I'm not very good at it. But it has forced me and humbled me to just take a step back and figure out how I can come into things with a beginner's mindset. We talk about this in adult learning and principles of education often, and I've had a chance to experience it for myself. So I've had a chance to, consume some of my own medicine, I guess. But having a beginner's mindset has allowed me to essentially reset and start to understand a new audience.
Sure.
I think it's critical, first and foremost, whether you're in front of a classroom or you're in a new environment where you're talking to a different, for me, it's a stranger in a strange land. Before I had my first conversations with external organizations, I first wanted to know and understand my audience. That's always the first rule to me, is understand as best you can who you're going to be speaking with so that you can then have intelligent conversations and go forth and conquer.
Right.
So that has been interesting to get up to speed in this world. It's been a challenge, but it's probably been one of the most rewarding things I can claim after the first 12 plus months or so.
Yeah, I think I told you this when you make the switch. I thought you were going to be an AICPA lifer, and so I was shocked. But at the same time, it didn't surprise me, Tom, because in our interactions, you have an inquisitive mind. You have a passion for developing people, and so to me, it made a lot of sense that even though it was a different entity in a different space, that number one, that you would take that risk, and secondly, that you would do well, because at the end of the day, and this is what I tell people who are just starting out in learning and development, as long as, I think that the first and foremost, you have to have a passion for developing other people and really pouring into other people, right? And so
100%.
if you have that drive, and that's sort of your part of your DNA, it doesn't, you can be in this industry or this industry, and do well, because you go in with that mindset. I love having that beginner's mindset. Very, very important, because it allows us to grow. And also, as I'm a big proponent of being a servant leader, and that I saw in you as well, of serving other people and serving those organizations. So it makes sense.
Well, I appreciate that. You and I have talked about this in the past. There are a couple of phrases out there that get thrown around widely and frequently, and perhaps are overused, but it's these notions of partnership and collaboration.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to, talk about how, hey, we're here to be a good partner and we really want to collaborate. And I think there are times when that's valid and sincere. You can pretty much tell those opportunities or those conversations when they're not. We throw those out and talk about, well, what does it really mean to be a partner and to collaborate honestly and sincerely? And I think at the end of the day, at least for me, my take has always been, in the world of L&D, it's all about the learner and the learning experience. What does it take to make it stick? What are the conditions to create that and enable it to happen? And then what are the partners willing to commit to in order to make that happen for the learner, for the audience? I think that's where real partnership kicks in. And in addition to those upfront assurances, then what happens when the road gets bumpy? Because it's easy to get along with somebody when everything's all sunshine and roses. But what happens when those problems come up that you've got to work together to solve and get mutual buy-in in order to get to that overriding vision of making the learning stick for the learner? So anyway, I try to bring that to work with me every day, regardless of the profession I was in or the profession I'm in now. And I think the folks who get it are the ones who get it.
And you're hoping as a professional that that because again, if it's your passion as part of your DNA, you want everybody to say yes to the good news, right? of what you're proposing, but not everybody will, right? And so you sort of have to still empathize with that individual, still serve that individual, knowing that maybe they'll never go along for the ride, but then you focus on those people that really are hungry, right? And you'll find. I mean, you'll find both types in every situation, right? You'll have the people who are really hungry for it, and the people who are a little, not so much. That's not part of what they want to do.
Well, you used a word. This is one of the reasons why I think our relationship has grown over the years, Reggie. You used a word called empathy.
Yeah.
And finally, in 2022, empathy is starting to enter the mainstream vocabulary in the corporate world. It's about time. But I think that is an important ingredient in virtually any relationship, but also in a work relationship where you got this dedication to that sort of partnership. I'm in a growth and development role for my organization. We're looking for ways to expand our membership, to get more folks into the profession. We are woefully short. The profession at large is woefully short of the individuals we need to meet the demand. And I think sometimes where I've seen folks miss the mark across a variety of professions who are in growth and development roles is a tendency to focus on the transactional at the expense of the longer term value that comes from longer term partnerships. I think empathy is a huge ingredient in that. And it enables you to, again, meet somebody where they are, put together a plan for what's the target state, and then have the commitment to get there. but I think it has to start with that seed of empathy before
Yeah.
it grows into that longer term sort of blossoming thing.
And you have to, you're absolutely right. I mean, and certainly I did find that in you, because again, we did business together, right? In the AICPA, you had, courses and programs and just things, certificate programs that you would offer to the firm. And I had to sort of, see what we needed. But it was never enough. It was never, I never saw it as a disingenuous, conversation. It was always, hey, what are your needs and how can we help you? Can we help you? All right.
Can we help?
And
Yeah.
so, and it was, and I always felt both with you and other people, I felt that this was going to be a relationship. We're going to enter into this journey together. Right. Mm-hmm. And then it just makes it easier, because I may not have a need for what you're offering at the moment, but because I know you care about about my success as an L&D person, and also the success of the firm or the company that I'm working for, then I know that if something comes up, I can call Tom. And I think the same applies to learning and development professionals. If you see it as I have to deliver a course, or I have to deliver a program, or I have to deliver, a new piece of technology or whatever, just as that transactional, you may have success in the short term, but in the long term, you're not going to be able to connect with people. And I think that the people who have success both in sales and I think as an L&D professional are the people who are looking at this as a journey, right? We're going to walk together. Right. I don't know it all, but we'll figure it out. And, you become a facilitator more than the professor or the teacher. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it starts there.
Yeah. And it reminds me of the old African proverb. I hope I get this right. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
I've always liked that. And hey, since this is a two-way conversation, what's been your experience so far? Now that you're on the other side as an entrepreneur, and you're looking to cultivate those relationships, what have you run into from your perspective?
Yeah, it's hard. It's like drinking out of a fire hydrant while you're in a roller coaster. So just because I want to use all those metaphors in one sentence. No, it's been great. My passion has always been in development, and it really developed into a passion because this is my second career. So I had to sort of switch from one career to the next, and I didn't feel, at least in the beginning, I didn't feel like I had the support system that I needed in order to be successful. I sort of had to fumble my way through that. And so now, a big focus of mine, especially for the last few years, and now that I'm on my own, is to provide, my expertise and my knowledge, and if I can come alongside businesses and companies and corporations that want to enhance their employee engagement, great. But it's also really reaching out and being a support to L&D professionals, who may be new in the profession, maybe seasoned professionals that maybe need a little inspiration and maybe another perspective. And also, Tom, people who may be considering switching careers like I did, right? Who say, there's aspects of this that I enjoy, but how do I do it, right? And so that's the whole purpose of this podcast. But life has been great. It's making a lot of contacts, as building a lot of relationships, and coming with the mindset this is going to be a long journey, right? I'm not changing my posture and my philosophy. I believe in relationships and building those relationships. And I always tell my potential clients, look, you don't need to buy anything from me now. This is what I can offer. I'm here to assist, but I'm more interested in that relationship long term than I am to making a quick sale. So that's what's been going on.
Well, I think the relationship piece is foundational. And honestly, as someone new in my world where I am, relationships just take time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think trust is a function of time. They need to see you. They need to see you more than once. They need to know you're going to be around. And then that can only be done, I think, over the course of time. And once they see, at least I hope, this has been my experience so far, once somebody sees that you're invested in them, it becomes so much easier to be conversational instead of what starts out as something that may be more transactional in nature.
Yeah.
I want to get past that transactional stage as soon as possible, because at the end of the day, I just like connecting with people.
Sure.
It used to be I would walk into a conference and I would see all the air walls are down. There's a massive stage with monitors up front and 800 people in a room ready to go.
Yeah.
And I would, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And now I walk in and I see a room full of 800 people I just haven't met yet.
That's great.
And I've only got 3 days. So I need to hustle.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people to meet. Yeah.
Yeah. But it has become to me easier the more comfortable I get in my own skin. And this is why I would take insight over youth any day. But as I get more comfortable in my skin, it's easier to talk to other people in their skins. And then you sort of migrate to those conversations where things just start to resonate.
Tom, would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Oh, that's a fine question. So back in the day when Myers-Briggs was all the rage, and there's still lots of references to that personality test, I think back in the day I was an ISTJ with a huge I for the introvert. The profile of that was basically social chameleon. An ISTJ, we could rise to the occasion when needed to, in a group setting.
Yeah.
But then we go home and we just sleep for 3 days because we're exhausted.
That's me.
And that was so me.
That's me.
And now, like, I'm up here in the mountains, beautiful scenery. It's 72 degrees, no humidity. Sorry for your own weather conditions down there.
We should have done this podcast there.
Yeah. Next episode, my place.
Yeah.
But I'm going crazy because there's nobody else around. And all I want to do is just find ways to interact. In fact, in this, post-COVID, I hope, world, this is my first time to be a permanent remote worker. And it is driving me crazy because I miss those opportunities to be in the hallway with coworkers or be getting coffee together. Or just have those sort of drive-by hallway chats. So I definitely morphed from an introvert into an extrovert these days.
I can relate completely with what you just said. I think that one of the downsides of being on your own as an entrepreneur, starting your own business where you don't have a team or employees. Is that I do miss that. I even though I would consider myself an introvert, people couldn't believe that, right?
That is hard to believe.
But I am a painfully. Listen, I love being alone when I most of the time and reading books and thinking and into my own head and designing. But I do miss that interactivity with colleagues and I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? I think for most people, especially coming out of the pandemic, we haven't come out of it, but you know what I mean. I think it's I think a lot of people have enjoyed the working from home and that flexibility, but they also miss working with their colleagues, and it's somewhere in the middle, right? I think that I don't know what you think about that and what you see other companies, maybe other firms out there doing.
I do think, the shift is pretty pronounced in terms of job descriptions offering more options to work remotely. My daughter she's a rising senior at NC State, go Pack. And she's got an internship with a massive video game company out of Los Angeles. And she's in Raleigh. So she can do that internship this summer, senior year. If things work out and she wants to hire on with them, they offer her a job after graduation. It's still going to be remote. And I said, sweetheart, go pick a city, someplace with an affordable cost of living where you can save some dollars back, but somewhere that's fun. Go enjoy yourself and get out and see a little bit more of the world. And so, so there's that dynamic in play. But for me, part of the connections, part of the value of connections with coworkers and being around other people is there's a creative energy that comes with that. Now, people may not know that that's what's going on when I'm interacting with them, but they're saying things and I'm listening, and little things will stick. And then suddenly, like pixie dust, I'll be back at my desk and think, wait a second. I can connect a dot or two there. And then all of a sudden I've got something that I didn't have before that conversation started. I miss that a lot.
And there's only, you can get, I mean, Zoom is great. The technology that we have available to us today is great, but I mean, it's not totally there. Although, one of the things that I've been researching more and playing with is interactions in the metaverse. And what that
okay, so Reggie Padine, predictions for where we'll be in the metaverse.
Oh my gosh. So let me back. I'll answer that question, but let me backtrack a little bit. I remember when I started in my career, and I was the door opened up for me to teach at the college level, and so I used to tell my students, this is back in 2011, 2010, 2011. I would tell my students, hey, the day will come where I will probably be in my home. And I would have different backgrounds and teach for this university and that university and this company and that company. And here, here we are. I don't think that the metaverse is gonna replace nothing. I hope it doesn't. Nothing will replace that human interaction, that face-to-face interaction.
Totally
However, it's pretty cool, Tom. I mean, I created a classroom where I can, I'm gonna in the months to come. Actually, in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna have somebody on the podcast who's a entrepreneur, business owner. They have about 50 employees. We struck a conversation on a flight back to Miami, and he's gonna have a summit, a company summit in the metaverse. So they purchased, Oculus Quest for everybody in the company, and they're gonna they're gonna do breakout rooms and fun things and stuff on the metaverse. I think there's something to it, and in fact, I kid around with some business partners, that Expand TMS, the product that I designed, has that social learning component to it. I mean, it was meant for people to be able to interact not only with work, but also with what they're learning as a community. But one of the things that I'm already thinking about is, and this is probably a 3.0, 4.0 version, is how does that now translate from a 2D experience to a 3D immersive experience. And I think there's going to be something to that.
Keep going hard on that one, because I'm already seeing VR and AR enter the cybersecurity talent recruitment and development space. And I think it's only going to increase. Now, it's a natural tie-in for a heavy tech-based area like this. But I think as tech gets more into it and shows others what's possible, I think everybody's going to be clamoring to get on board the VR AR train. There's just too much happening with artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. We know how to do the math. Like, we've got the math. I heard somebody at HP, one of their chief innovation guys, say a couple of years ago, we've got the math. Now we just need to figure out how to put it together. So it's coming. I'm convinced it's coming.
Yeah, no, and the technology, the price is really, it's coming down, right? I mean, and so, I don't want to give a free plug here to any one company, but I think that the money that is being invested in these new technologies is definitely, and the more and more people. I mean, I'm having conversations with other L&D professionals who are playing around in the metaverse already as well. And so it's bringing the prices down, and I think it's very doable.
Agreed.
But yeah, I'm excited. That excites me. Just the fact that I can interact with people in a different environment. But it's still very early in the game.
Well, and I fully agree with you that the human touch, I hope it never goes away. You've seen it in classrooms yourself, where that collaborative learning, when you have people together and you start to see a light bulb go off in Jane because of something that Jackie said, or then Joe glommed on to, it's hard to replace that sort of in-person, real live, live learning that's happening.
I always go back to an experience I had for one of the classes I was teaching. And it came out of necessity. I had to travel for my day job, but I was also teaching at the university level, and so I went up to the dean and I said, look, I want to fulfill my commitment to teach this class. It was a 15-week course. And I proposed to him. I said, look, this was, when Facebook groups came on the scene. And so you could create a private group. And so I told him, I said, look, what if half the term we taught it in the classroom, and then the second half was all through this, private group. And boy, was it a hit.
Really?
My students loved it. And in fact, that whole, I think maybe because they were playing with new technology, they were sort of helping me test, but oh my gosh, it was probably one of the most fun classes I have taught. And by the way, some of the students who were not, you could tell, they were not as motivated during the first 7 or 8 weeks in the classroom. Boy, their performance took off in the second half, and the motivation was there. So I think that people are open to trying new things, and I think it excites people to know that, hey, I can come at this in a different way than the same old way of doing things, right? And so, which is, by the way, why I'm passionate about L&D, because we get to push the limit a little bit or a lot, depending on where we are, in order to motivate people to, maybe come at them in a different way for them to be able to learn.
And again, it's a learner-centric model that says, okay, who's my audience? How best can I get them to respond to the stimuli in order to make the learning stick, so they can be better at whatever it is they're trying to do? And that can be generational, it can be cultural, it can be geographic, but the thing is, figure out what motivates that learner, and then once you figure that out, it doesn't matter what the thing is you're trying to teach them,
right?
But how to unlock or help them unlock the potential inside of it, which I think is pretty magical.
It is,
from a development perspective.
And also to add to that, and this is what I tell, especially L&D professionals, is create an environment or create a learning experience where you hit the emotion as well, right? Not just don't just aim for the brain, aim also for the heart, right? because I have found, and in fact, I did my doctoral dissertation on this was perception is reality. And so if the employee or the learner feels, okay, I'm going to get something out of this, there is a greater likelihood that they're actually going to get something out of it than having something that is just aimed at the mind, but with no
intellectual,
right. There's no emotional connection there, and it could be well structured and completely missed the mark. Where if you turn it around, and I'm not advocating cutting corners, but you know, in the corporate world, sometimes you have to do rapid development. If you aim to make an emotional connection with the learner, even if the content is not as solid, they'll probably gain more out of that.
100%. So my daughter, she called me a couple of days ago, and she is in her last year of being a counselor at a camp where she's been since the third grade. And Abby Pender is nothing if not ambitious. I think as soon as she stepped foot on that campus, she knew one day by the time she was in school, she was going to be a counselor. Here she is. So she had to do a little presentation the other night, and she was kind of stressed about it. And so she was asking me about it. And I mean, it's low stakes. This is, it's summertime, it's camp, but she's got to get in front of a large group of kids. Sure. And they look up to her. I mean, she's got some clout and some street cred there. So she said, "Dad, any advice?" And I just told her, I said, "Abby, at the end of the day, what I've learned is sincerity trumps eloquence." Yeah. And if you can speak from the heart and you can reach people internally at sort of the gut level, like people know when you're being sincere, and they know when you're faking it. But I think when you can connect at that sort of emotional level, like what you're describing, that's when the message sticks its landing. And I think that's whether it's relationships, whether it's presentations, whether it's Zoom calls, whether it's connecting with folks at the bar after the conference sessions are over.
Yeah.
I think sincerity trumps eloquence time and again.
Yeah, 100%. So I think, and it's sometimes is the the toughest thing to do or to develop as a professional. In my opinion, I think it's been, we come at this, we want to be very professional and very and we can come across as robotic, which, by the way, that's today I'm not wearing a t-shirt, wearing my one of my beautiful caps, because I didn't have enough time to change between presentations and now the podcast. But part of my vision for the podcast was to be very relaxed environment. I wanted this to be a conversation, and sort of get rid of the the veneer a little bit of, well, I need to be a certain way every single time. Just be real. And I think that the new kids, right? I have a couple of millennials, and I have a Gen Zer, keeping it real, right? It's very, very important to today's audience. No, you're absolutely right. Let me ask you this, Tom, in your experience, and since we're talking to an audience of L&D professionals, and you've seen a lot of us in your interactions over the years, any words of, number one, maybe things that you've seen that work, what can L&D professionals do to help those organizations, what you've seen work, and maybe some words of caution of things that, hey, listen, this is what I've seen, and maybe we need to avoid. Anything along those lines that you can give us?
Okay, this is a good question. I'm not sure it's easy to answer conclusively, but I'll just give you a couple of knee-jerk reactions. One is, I think as L&D professionals, it's incumbent upon us to bring informed ideas to the table. we're well practiced at learning principles and Bloom's taxonomy and making sure that we get the learning objectives right. And there's a lot of education and experience that comes with that. That said, as experienced learning development professionals, I think we also need to be prepared to go to the table and ask from the learners and other stakeholders, what is it you're trying to get? What do you want? And not rush to the table to say, here's what we need to do. Now, that requires a certain humility. And I think it goes back to that servant learning thing that I think you have modeled so well, and I think makes the most successful people in L&D as successful as they are. Yes, you've got some preconceived notions. You're a professional. You're supposed to have those. But if you can marry that with talk to me and tell me what you're trying to do, okay, now you've got the potential for a total package. Because guess what? Some of those preconceived notions, they're not going to give 2 cents about. And so you got to let go of those.
Yeah.
And then meet the audience where it is.
It's funny. I went through an experience where, I've always been very big in developing, leadership training and management training. And so so I love the technology and designing the technology, but I also love developing people and developing leaders. And I remember having a conversation with, my new boss. And so, I sort of came, very excited. So, leadership development, and he says, yeah, you won't be doing any of that. we got that covered.
Oh yeah.
And so, right. And so I was like, oh yeah, which by the way, in theory, probably he thought it was covered, but it wasn't. But you come at it, as a professional saying, hey, this is something that I enjoy to do. And you may have to, shift your perspective quickly. And that only comes, what you were mentioning, that it comes with, coming to the table and asking a lot of questions. And then having that humility of, you thought you were going to be doing X, Y, Z, but the needs of the organization are something else, right? And so you have to be able to make that pivot.
And just to pull this full circle back to my life in the world of cybersecurity, one of the most encouraging and helpful books I've read so far, trying to understand my audience, is a book written by the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer of GoPro. I'm sure a lot of your listeners will be familiar with the technology that lets you record yourself jumping out of the helicopter as you ski down, the 14ers in Colorado. But the most important thing that Todd Barnum says in this book is you've got to learn to talk with and interact with the people in your organization. He's not talking about firewalls. He's not talking about security operations. He's not talking about what's happening in the SOC, detect and respond techniques, any of that stuff. What he's saying is you got to meet the people, you got to talk to the people. And even though in your head what needs to happen to maintain the security posture of the organization, pump the brakes on that. Because what you don't yet have is the intel from the people on the ground and what the leadership and stakeholders want, which may not always be the same thing as what you think they should have.
And by the way, in a lot of cases, I've seen this as well. What management thinks they need and what people actually on the boots on the ground actually are experiencing could be two different things. Which brings me to I mean, you had to deal with both, people like me on the professionals, but you also had to deal with the C-suite and upper management. And what would be your advice for people at that level with regards to creating cultures of learning and development, where we may be heading in the next few years here, how they can have the greatest impact with their staffs? Anything along those lines?
Man, that's a loaded question, because it's a tricky balance. Always, it's a tricky balance. How much do the generals in the tent have preformed opinions about things, and then compare that to the folks who are in the trenches and up against it every day. I wish I had a magic bullet, magic answer, silver bullet. I think it takes repeated messaging.
Yeah.
I think it takes firsthand stories from people in success cases, and to expose them to leadership and stakeholders so that those folks can make more informed decisions at leadership level than maybe they currently have right now. I don't think it's a one and done, I guess is my point.
Right.
It takes constant messaging and exposure to change opinions, if not outright mindsets.
Yeah. That's a good point.
It's the Colorado cutting through the canyon, the river cutting through the canyon. It happens over a long period of time, as opposed to just, a quick hit and then you're on to the next.
Yeah, and that makes it, this. I mean, the world is changing so fast, right? Mm-hmm. And technology is changing so rapid that I can see the tension, and I feel the tension of going for the longer journey or having to do something like yesterday, yep. Right? Because of the changing, the pandemic, right? The pandemic, a lot of organizations out there felt that, oh yeah, we have to do something with the technology, and hello, some of them were caught off guard, right? So they were caught off guard, and in L&D especially, they were caught off guard, where some because they had already established like a foundation of e-learning and distance education and all of that. They were able to. It was still difficult. It was difficult for me, but it was easier than not having any of that, right? I mean, I can't imagine. So I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is how do we balance the two, right? How do we balance? Okay, we're in this for the long journey, but sometimes we want to pull the trigger like right away because of things that are happening.
So the page I like to pull out of the tech industry's handbook, and this is not unique to cyber. I mean, it's what the world of IT has been doing for years and years and years, is trying to adopt that agile mentality and methodology. So get some quick wins up front, quick hits, dip your toes in the water, test things, do the feedback, and then go into larger hits over a longer period of time. Yeah. And then you build not just the experiment, but also the partnerships and the relationships as well. If I've learned nothing else over the last 20 years in this world, as someone on the outside coming in to partner with an organization for internal development, it's that the difference between good conversations and great partnerships, to me, is a commitment to excellence. So that commitment implies a longer term approach to things, and the excellence part, that's the only option, in my opinion. That's the only option. That's always the thing to strive for. So even if you do fall short, you still hit pretty dang good.
That's right. That's right. What is it? If you aim for the moon, the worst case scenario is at least you hit a star or a comet or a satellite somewhere. So you're absolutely right. It's been part of my DNA as well. And it comes from that growth mindset. I don't know if I'm going to be offending part of the audience here, but I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan, and and so we have a history of going to the Super Bowl and not winning. Then we went on a 20-year stretch where we were really bad. And this new coaching staff, they were established about 5 years ago, and now hopefully this is the year. Please, hopefully this is the year. But
that's commitment right there, my friend.
What's that?
That's commitment right there, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I've created all my kids have been blessed with the same curse. They've never seen the Bills do well until recently. But what I was going to get at is that the coaching staff and management, and this is where leadership plays such a big role, right? Because you can have very talented individuals. But if you don't create and get everybody to buy into the process, and that's the the terminology that they use, at One Bills Drive in Buffalo, is trust the process. They build their culture not just on talent, but but does this individual that we want to bring in, do they have that mindset of, are they coachable, teachable, are they humble and hungry, are they team oriented rather than a superstar? Because you see a lot of superstars out there that hurt the locker room or hurt their organization, right? And so trusting the process and creating that culture of learning and growth and what you just mentioned, excellence. I think it's the that comes with modeling modeling those principles as well. Because one of the things that I've noticed, and this is one of the things that I teach in leadership is, look, you can talk a good game, but if you don't model it, right? That was probably one of the frustrating parts of in some of the organizations I was at. And what I've seen is, we want to establish a very good leadership management training program for our up and coming, staff. But then, upper management and leadership would not model those principles. So there was a huge disconnect, right? Of, servant leadership, but I'm not acting as a servant leader, growth mindset, but I just, I don't want to learn anything anymore. I think I've learned everything, I have the credentials and I don't have to learn anything else. That wouldn't you agree that it's having that type of the process and being, all in on that process?
Yeah. And one thing that I did not know as an up and comer back in the day is that you don't have to have the title in order to lead.
Absolutely.
And in fact, we've talked about this with my daughters. You can demonstrate those qualities of leadership simply by being who you are and the ways that you choose to carry yourself around your team members, your coworkers, whoever. If you're a volunteer in an organization, you can still lead even though you don't have the title of manager, director, et cetera. And I think that's kind of important. And it also shows, if you're demonstrating it the right way, that you have your team members' backs, and hopefully in turn that motivates them to want to return the same to you and to everybody else on the team. That's one of the most important things I look for when we bring new employees into the organization. I hope I contribute to that myself, but it's a sense of, will I be able to trust this person to be good to their word, to follow through, and to help me when I stumble, because Lord knows I'm going to give them plenty of opportunities for that particular case. And, are we going to have each other's backs on the field and in the huddle? So, no, that's a good point. That's why I'm so glad you joined me today, Tom, because I've seen that it's part of your philosophy as a professional. So how can people get a hold of you? Plug away now, man. I mean, sure. Okay. I'll do. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest, fastest way to get to me. It's the easiest to remember. Tom Pender, TOMPENDER. It's pretty simple.
Put the link somewhere though. Yeah,
I thought you might actually. Yeah. And the other nugget that I will leave with you here is Friday mornings. Always look for a post of a music track. And
I've noticed that.
Find those under the hashtag WTOM, all Tom, all the time. Ooh. Because music is crazy important to me.
Were you a DJ in a former life? You're a radio DJ?
Aspire to be.
Yeah.
I aspire to be. Yeah.
I could tell. I mean, you have the voice and the presence.
My dad actually put me through college on the back of a career in radio sales, radio ad sales.
Is that right?
As a kid, I spent a lot of time up in the DJ booth with on-air personalities with those cool acoustic tiles and all the sound, the big poofy mics and the big cans on their ears. Yeah. A lot like your setup, Reggie. I mean, shoot, you're a DJ.
Yeah, I don't know what I am, but I do have some acoustics panels in front of me, and then some lighting. And hey, listen, I've had to learn, a lot of things here.
All
But
times.
no,
Yeah.
listen, I'm so glad you joined me today, Tom. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
We'll
you, Reggie.
definitely put a link in all of our social media and all the posts. And listen, if you're out there and you're in need of, even though Tom made it very clear that he's not here on an official capacity, please reach out to him. He's one of the good ones. I mean, I always enjoyed interacting with you, Tom. And so your professionalism and your care have meant a lot. So uh, I told you were going to enjoy this. I hope you did. Please share with people out there. I think it's gonna be great for them. Thank you so much for everything that you've meant to this community already, and for subscribing and liking and sharing and your comments and your feedback. All of that means so much. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day and rest of the week. See you next time.